Welcome to Identity Inside Out, Getting ID Right, a special InnovationOz.com podcast series brought to you by SailPoint. The last 2 years have seen unparalleled forces drive change. The setting of an unprecedented stage for a work-from-anywhere culture, coupled with an equal evolution of digital services and an ever-evolving, sophisticated cyber threat landscape. The corresponding response to this shift has been a continued focus on complying with the ASD Essential 8 and amendments to the Critical Infrastructure Act, imposing tighter guidelines and increasing cybersecurity requirements. While technology is an enabler, focus is renewed on facilitating change without impact. In this podcast series, we explore the controversies, perils, and opportunities that face industry in the midst of change, and how the organizations today are going to secure their virtual borders against the attacks of tomorrow.
Welcome to Identity Inside and Out, Getting ID Right, which is an InnovationOz.com podcast series with SailPoint. In today's episode, The Future of Work, Security in the Age of the Distributed Workforce, I'm talking to Martin Longley, the Head of Digital Experience at MYOB, and Nam Lam, the Country Manager, Australia, New Zealand for SailPoint. Welcome to both of you. So Martin and Nam, welcome to today's discussion. Thank you for joining me. We're talking about something that's probably close to most employers' hearts at the moment. How do we manage our workforce in a hybrid environment securely, simply, and everything that comes with that? Obviously, people are most organisations' biggest asset. And there's lots of new things we need to think about these days in terms of making sure that they can do their business and be engaged in our workforces. Martin, I might start with you. You obviously are from your own, organisation, MYOB, and I'm sure that you have a view more broadly. Where are the kind of challenges these days and how we are making sure that our workforce is connected to the mothership, if you like?
Well, I think there used to be, historically a sort of a view inside of enterprise and corporates that you'd have an edge to your scope, and you can control that quite well. I think now the edge of your domain or of your network is now everywhere, right? So there literally isn't an edge, and so certainly from an enablement perspective, we want to bring capability to our employees that can be done from anywhere at any time on any device. I mean, it's as simple as that, and those same type of parameters that you apply in a customer world are applied inside of a corporate entity. And so for us, thinking about how we apply certainly principles around security and enablement has evolved, and it's evolved on steroids over the last few years, as everyone on the planet knows, but probably more significantly for corporate entities. And so for us, it's about how do we adapt to that. We had to, and how do we continue to see those things that are causing us pain points or issues be resolved, and that could be anywhere for any staff member.
Nam, I think talking about sort of the edges everywhere, which indeed it is. We also, would you say that a lot of employees kind of have a low tolerance for any kind of friction? And when you're talking downtime, impatience, there's a tension point between security and friction, which has been, this is decades old. But what are we talking about today when we're talking about the tension point between those two things?
Yeah, for sure. Martin, I'm just going to elaborate on what you've said. So let's call this environment that we work in as an edgeless environment, right? Working from anywhere, on anything, at any time. So in terms of providing a frictionless experience for our staff users, look, the key challenge that I see is we are now living in a instant gratification environment, and this is what technology has done for us. Technology has has enabled us to get anything we want at our fingertips. So, when you have people who have these types of expectations, from our standpoint in identity security or in digital, how do we accommodate for these types of users? And so in our domain called identity security, this is something that we definitely try to solve for. As Martin said before, you've got these expectations, and you've got a complex digital ecosystem that we need to work in in almost any organization that we work in. How do we accommodate for this scenario? So I'm happy to discuss more.
This is a question I kind of feel as an employer, I kind of see is with that impatience or that instant gratification, if it's not there, we used to talk about BYOD, then it was BYO app, and now it was BY. If there's any friction, is everyone just bringing anything they want? Is that something I can see, Martin? Is that something that you see is a genuine risk if people can't access things quickly with seamlessly, that they just will go off-piste?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, to my point earlier, it's a little bit more about the experiences that you'd expect inside of a corporate is the same as you'd expect inside of a commercial or general marketplace, and simple basic things around self-serviceable access, onboarding and offboarding, super easy, and that as an entity ourselves, we have really had to challenge our approach to these things and be an enabler of those types of experiences that you would normally expect your employees to get in through a consumer-driven app or consumer-driven experience, and so that's certainly different from the old version of IT, which was like, well, you get what you get, and you don't get upset. It's just what you have to live with, and it's the corporate world, right? Whereas the demand is certainly generational demand as well as expectations that those things are differentiators for your EVP or your value proposition as an entity is really at the forefront. And especially when you think about flexibility of workforce and those types of things coming in and out of your organizations or the branding of that across the competitive landscape, especially for us in technology. It's a very competitive landscape to get the right people, and we're an intellectual property business. And so finding the right people, that brand is really important, and understanding that those things are easy inside your organization is a differentiator, and it's quite well known if you do that poorly. And so for us, it's been a big change that we need to change the way we approach this stuff.
That's interesting because it goes, and I know we talk about this from time to time from a government perspective in terms of building trust, and that frictionless and the experience is part of the trust piece. And is this the sort of company that I want to work with? Does the experience match my expectation of my other experiences? So now that's clearly a driver for those organisations that are wanting to attract and retain talent, but at the same time, there's this sort of backdrop of security that underpins everything as well. So how are you seeing the frictionless piece and the robust piece working together?
This is such a big topic, and I was kind of thinking the same thing, Martin, as you were speaking. So if we look at the macroeconomics of of what we're living in at the moment, we are at 50-year lows when it comes to unemployment here in Australia, at about 3.4%. So talking about that competitiveness, in terms of attracting the best staff that we can get, we need to do everything necessary to entice them to work, entice these A+ people to work for our organisations. So with that, how do we solve for that? And given that we are living in this post-pandemic or pandemic situation, making sure that we are providing the digital tools for these for these people that we want to attract as quickly as possible. This is going to be key in terms of attracting but also retaining A+ staff. What are your thoughts, Martin?
Yeah, I think you have to make it easy. I use the term make IT easy, or make it easy inside your organisation to get access, and self-service is a big driver of that. And that's right across our tool set. We've also looked intensively around adoption and use of capability. There's a plethora of capability inside of organisations, and it's very easy to add on another SaaS-based platform to do another thing, and the proliferation of that is quite can be quite extensive and broad-reaching and impacting, and so for us, it's about driving the use of our existing tool set, making sure when our team members have a good knowledge and understanding of what that tool set is. So we do focus a bit on the enablement piece around communication, education, and adoption, so that we actually understand that the tools that we're providing are the ones that are fit for purpose. So very much a lens on the same type of thinking around our internal employees as customers, and those customers, and understanding the drivers of those customers, and understanding their needs, right down to measuring their use through the same types of tools that you use for an external customer. So analytics around use of applications and inside of applications and those types of things. Things that we do to understand that we've got the right mix, and then if there's new tools that need to be added or removed or consolidated, that we have good options for the business and work through that change for them, with them. Just picking up on the point around security, with no edge, it actually drives the importance of the person and that person's identity, right? And the plethora of that identity across all of these platforms is so vital, and so vital for us that it's almost the differentiator, because we almost need to not trust anyone. So working to that zero trust sort of view, and the key thing that we can trust, certainly with the levels of federation across our SaaS platforms, is who the person is. And that's a really important element for us to do, and where we've spent quite a bit of time.
That notion of identity, it's such an important one when you're talking about edgeless, like that you have a technology contract with an individual who are who they are and who have access to the things that they need to have access to be productive. But at the same time, there is, we're at a very dynamic time when we talk about identity from a social and human and personal perspective. So on one hand, we're moving really quickly on identity in a technical sense. The other hand, we're moving very quickly in an environment where identity about a human is very fluid and changing. I've just opened a huge box, but does anyone want to have a crack about that? Because these are not fixed things. On one hand, we want to be clear about what that looks like. On the other hand, we need to allow for fluidity around an individual.
Yep, absolutely. So, Corrie, I'll have a go at this one. So, to Martin's point, how do we make IT easy while we make sure that we maximize the cybersecurity posture within the digital environment that we live in, and talking also about the social aspects of that. Well, I've got a great example that I can share from a retail customer who I only spoke to a few weeks ago, and it was a great testimonial that they shared with us. They said that, hey, Nam, with your identity security platform, you're actually helping us with diversity. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, prior to the introduction of identity security being brought into our environment, our HR system was quite rigid by only being able to identify users by their legal names. So the issue here is that if you've got staff who would like to be identified by their preferred names or name, this makes it hard for the HR system to identify that person if a person wants to be known by multiple names. So with our platform, by being able to uniquely identify users irrespective of how many names they would like to be called by, we were able to assist them with making a big difference to people who really just do not want to be labelled or called by their legal names, and to be able to provide that flexibility, but by also ensuring a heightened cybersecurity posture. So hopefully that helps.
I think that's fascinating because, we now know that, the notion of binary kind of lends itself into the way we understand technology, like it's a 1 or a 0. And now we're talking about, how we kind of make sure that technology is fit for purpose, not just you talked about sort of maybe names or gender, but I guess we're also talking about culture as well, and how technology can actually reflect the diversity of people and the way that they interact. Martin, do you have sort of observations? Obviously, as an organisation like MYOB is constantly looking at how it refreshes the way it looks at technology and how it reflects employees. But I'd just be curious to see if you've sort of got any observations there.
Not specifically around those types of things, but I think certainly persona, understanding, and the expectations, those types of things are certainly some things that we've done internally, and certainly externally when we look at our own customers and products. It's very nuanced to ensure that we have that sort of balance inside of our organisation that represents our external customers. And so we certainly index all of those things and have a responsibility to do that. But not anything specific. I was thinking a little bit more about the identity of or the persona, or more the identity of a person, and how that goes across all of their work and personal lives, and how I'm sure we all have a whole vast array of logins and passwords, and hopefully we're using a really secure password management tool rather than trying to remember and using easy passwords and those types of things, to then also using a tool for internal, for inside of a corporate to outside of a corporate and a personal use, or across other entities, and how potentially that could start to evolve where it is really related to an individual across all of the spectrums, and where there could be a big opportunity or growth is outside of the corporate. So you have this ubiquitous, unique individual identity that then allows you capability across anything and anywhere, and without passwords ideally. So biometrics that would allow certainly that security, irrespective, being it facial or fingerprint or whatever else, has been a place to evolve. And I think that in itself is an interesting space to see how the industry as a whole will evolve. Inside of our corporate domain, I think it's relatively simple. We do have a limited subset to deal with, and so I'm interested to see what's going to happen over the next few years around how that explodes, where it is a bit more ubiquitous.
Did you want to add anything to that, Nam? Particularly around the biometrics, I think is quite an interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. As you were talking about, hey, what does the future hold? Right, I was just thinking about perhaps the changing demographics of our staff, our users coming to work for us employers. So as it relates to biometrics, I mean that talks to more the authentication space, which is a bit out of our domain, Corey. So we deal more with the kind of identity challenges on the back end. But as it relates to the future, coming back to are we prepared for the as the title suggests, the future of work, and that encompasses the consideration for what is the type of person or people who are going to be coming to work for employers? Are we prepared for their kind of needs? And here I'm thinking about the people and students that are coming out of university. And, all I can think about is, that the now gratification is just going to become even more extensive. So that's just my thoughts on that.
And I think if you think about gig, also think if you think about gig economy type of activity, you could have individuals, and certainly in corporates, I don't think we've really adopted that well enough for that quick, short delivery of value on and off inside the organisation that enables that at a level of fluidity that it's super easy but also managed and contained. I think that's probably an area for us to at MYOB to certainly consider, but other organisations will be considering where they can potentially get that that capability. And I don't think that's necessarily just, especially in the digital world. I don't, for us, like our region is ANZ, and you could potentially now say that your workforce is the planet. So anybody, anywhere, on any device that can offer up certain capabilities, something that's I would see that we'd all need to evolve into. And obviously the identity that surrounds that and the security that surrounds that is going to be important.
Just my thoughts on that is, talking about that fluidity, that is just a core principle that our domain of identity security is really moving towards. Our philosophy is the perimeter is the user. So if we move forward with that idea, given that the digital environment for most organizations will just become more complex. How do we evolve and just become better at ensuring that we are providing that fluidity and agility as we move into the future, and that's how I think we're going to be able to address I want everything now access.
There's a few things we talked about this current state of the workforce, that kind of recent events, and the one top of mind is Twitter. Like when you talk about employee engagement, it's like you're hot, then you're cold, you're in, then you're out, then you're up, then you're down. There is a lot of dynamic permission access going on at Twitter. And we are seeing ripples of organisations having huge change in the way that they're staffed. Like there are, and never so great as some big, well-known right-sizing or even bankruptcies. So as we go from the kind of really restricted access to talent that we've talked about, because that has been where we've been living for a long time, to some of those larger organisations really changing their workforce dynamic substantially and very quickly, that's a challenge. I'm not saying that we all want to be turning on and off access, but it does seem to be something that people are thinking about these days.
Yeah, 100%. Like it doesn't take too much to get up on all the change that is occurring. Like I have a personal view around a number of those things. I think digital and technology businesses over the last few years have had a pretty good run, and we've seen exponential growth and expectations with regard to salary as well as movement across industries, and essentially. The exponential cost of running those businesses is blown out of proportion, and what we see now is a correction, I think, back to something that is a little bit more normal, if there is such a thing. So a rebalancing is occurring. In saying that, I think the workforce of the future is not it's certainly much more dynamic than it has been of the one in the past, and like it doesn't go too far to where the data suggests that movement is still going to be king and or queen, and it is that we need to be able to adjust to that quickly and nimbly and appropriately. Equally, as many people go off Facebook as join Twitter, as them go off Twitter and join Snapchat, or go off Snapchat and join TikTok. Organisations, that movement is something that needs to be managed. Fortunately, I've only got a 2,500 employees to manage, so the volume's not going to be anywhere near their size. But I think it's a natural part of future business environment that change is going to be constant.
It is interesting. Look, I know there's kind of like your consumer, digital platforms like Twitter and all the other social media platforms that are doing some interesting things right now. I will say that I've got big respect for some organizations in the B2B space. So Salesforce is a great example. So the CEO, founder of that company is a person called Mark Benioff. And he's not forcing people to come back to work because he acknowledges that productivity can be the same or or even greater working completely digitally. So from a personal point of view, I'm for working from home, and the whole work from home economy situation that we're in. So there are also great examples of large organizations like Salesforce and perhaps even Atlassian, who I believe are going down the same path is enabling people to work from anywhere because they believe that great productivity can still be achieved in that way of working.
I did think that MYOB is actually a great example of an organisation that's really had to be very conscious about its evolution.
100%. Look, I've got lots of stories there too. I've been at MYOB for 11 years. And I think there's a bit for me around, part of our current strategy is a little bit more about a curated digital sprawl rather than, this whole add-on ecosystem for us, which is we believe there's a lot of additional software that's being procured by small businesses that is adding no value, and it's creating extra complexity inside of those businesses where their business isn't about managing the software and tools that they use. It's about delivering the value that they have to their customers. And so our view is that we want to curate that so that we can be the full suite of capability of business management platform for small business. And I joined at a time where we're either going to have to innovate and change and really disrupt our own organisation, or we're going to become irrelevant and we wouldn't be in the market anymore. And that competitive landscape with startups that have no legacy or tech debt that we had, no history, but our value proposition has always been about those small businesses and understanding their needs. I think there's an interesting piece that's happened in the last couple of years that I think is a differentiator for us. So we're looking more broadly than what what most people think of us as accounting solutions at the end of the day. So we're certainly very strong in ANZ around payroll, and we are only ANZ, so we're not trying to do this across the planet. We're ANZ specifically, so we're specialist localists, if you want to call it something. We're also now expanding out to a recent acquisition, which is Flair HR, which is onboarding and benefits platform that integrates into our product. And so that is about onboarding and offboarding employees, ensuring that they're completing their super commitments, novated lease benefits platforms, those types of things into curated workflows that is for small business. And look, we've already done 150,000 onboarding activities for small business this year. Through that platform, and that is about the experience and taking away some of the pain of what a small business operator would need to do, and that's just an example of our broadening platform. There's other things in the financial services domain which help small business around their cash flow and those types of things, which is much broader than accounting. And our business management platform is the strategy that we're going with. That's going to be a more curated experience. So we say, here's these things that solve these business problems.
Just as we kind of sort of round off the conversation, next year or in following months, there's going to be continued change. Any kind of sort of last thoughts or considerations in terms of managing this sort of dynamic workforce that we're now a part of and a part of supporting?
There was an interesting comment, I suppose, you referenced there around productivity in and out of the workplace. And I think as a technologist for many years, certainly had been promoting the ability or the capability to work from anywhere on any device, and getting that change in adoption came around through necessity to get the levels that we are at now, and so that there is actually proof points that productivity can be done irrespective of location. I think there's a nuance in that for me and for me personally, but also for MYOB, whereas we actually believe that relationships are really important in our business to enable and to get things done, and we believe that actually relationships are built at greater depths in person, and that doesn't necessarily mean that we also don't support full hybrid workforce, because we do, but we actually say that we want people to come back to build those connections, and that in itself helps with them when they are remote, and that they have a level of productivity irrespective of location. So we have gone with a blended approach rather than all in or all out. And so we have this real clear delineation of expectation that it is still important to connect, and the things that you do when you are in person is about building those connections. And so we're indexing the things that really matter when you are together. So the relationship and depth of connection, the collaboration, those types of activities are the things that we do when we're in the office together. So and that's just how we're approaching it. Other organisations, like as you said, Atlassian or Twitter, may have completely different views, but we think for us it's important, and it's important for our size, that we have that blended hybrid model.
Yeah, absolutely. From me, Corey, I think it's a case by case basis in terms of what organisations decide on in terms of what type of workplace situation they want to enforce across, their staff. My view is that digitization will continue to grow at an exponential rate. A recent study from Gartner, which surveyed 281 organizations globally, 86% of the board directors of these organizations said that digital will be included, or it will enforce business growth strategies for these organizations. And so what that means is, digital is here to stay. It's going to continue to grow. And what that also means is that from a cybersecurity perspective, with all the cybersecurity horror stories that we're hearing, we need to make sure that we keep on top of those. And given that we do believe that, again, the modern perimeter is the user, it all starts with the identity. I'm being a little bit biased here. So that would be my recommendation to all organizations.
It's a good way to wrap up today. The modern perimeter is the user, and of course our workforces are everything. So I'd just like to thank you, Nam Lam and Martin Longley, for a great conversation today. I really appreciate your time.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this Identity Inside Out, Getting ID Right podcast, brought to you by SailPoint. For more, keep tuning in to innovationoz.com/podcasts or visit sailpoint.com.